Hey, what's up guys? This video will cover the basics of flying an emergency landing pattern in the T6. An emergency landing pattern is a continuous spiraling pattern to the runway and can be flown two ways. The first is as a precautionary emergency landing, or PEL, which simulates a sick engine scenario during which power is available for energy management. The second is as a simulated forced landing, or SFL, obviously during which power is unavailable for use in energy management until after touchdown or upon initiation of a go-around. If you look in front of the aircraft, you should recognize that this is Vance Air Force Base. If you don't recognize this is Vance Air Force Base, you should probably review some of the other ground reference videos available to you on this channel. The flashing runway is runway 17 left. Regardless of your target runway, an ELP is initiated from a position called high key. High key is located in a position of your choice over the first third of the runway. The altitude for high key is a range between 2,500 and 3,000 feet AGL over that location. However, while practicing in the pattern, use 3,000 feet AGL or 4,300 feet MSL as your high key altitude. Because you're at 3,000 feet AGL, you won't be able to see exactly when you're over high key unless you use a reference point to beam it, like this east-west road in these houses. If you're driving straight and level to high key after having requested it from somewhere in the pattern, or after you've bunted the nose over from the climb from initial, about 25% will maintain 125 knots into the position of high key. If you're happeling into a field for an ELP, use 4 to 6% to simulate the feathered prop. In Vance's pattern, call high key about a half mile prior to extending your gear. The controller may tell you to orbit for traffic conflicts, and orbiting with your gear down is both inefficient and pretty embarrassing. If you're told to report low key, continue with your ELP.
XL11, high key.
Report low key.
Alright, 140 gear clear. Gear, no flaps.
At your high key position, clear your gear and configure with flaps up. As you roll off of high key for your perch, reduce your power to 4 to 6% and maintain 120 knots until on final. Low key is a position at 1,500 feet AGL, a beam your intended point of touchdown. In Vance's pattern, it corresponds with 2,800 feet MSL. At low key, report low key with your gear, and configure the flaps as required. You're going to have to do some very high-speed analysis of your energy state from here on out. If you find yourself high at low key, you may have to slip in order to lose altitude, which involves putting your wing on the inside of the turn down and putting rudder in the opposite direction. Under no condition should you put rudder in the same direction of your turn. That's a skid and it's liable to roll you inverted and kill you. If you find yourself low at low key, you can delay flap configuration to minimize drag on the aircraft, or use power to correct your glide slope if you're flying a PEL.
XL11, low key, gear down.
When you roll off of low key, shift your aim point 500 to 1,000 feet short of your intended point of landing. Then begin to cross-check your airspeed more closely. If your airspeed is increasing towards about 135 knots, your energy is generally adequate to make your original aim point, but you'll still have to determine when you have the runway made to commit to an increased flap setting. If your airspeed is staying relatively static, you may be a bit low on energy, and you should delay configuring any further until you can verify you'll make your original aim point. You may have to add power. If your airspeed is decreasing, you'll very likely have to add power to correct your glide path to avoid landing short. In this case, I can tell I have some excess energy, so I'm able to configure from flaps takeoff to flaps landing fairly quickly. This is the point where I feel comfortable that I'll make the runway and configure to flaps landing. At some point in your final turn, your shifted aim point is going to pass underneath your nose, and you can return to using your original intended point of landing as your aim point. This will shallow out your glide path, and as a consequence, your airspeed will begin to bleed back as you transition to final, where you should maintain 110 knots until transitioning to land. If you're flying a PEL, you can set idle prior to landing. For an SFL, leave the power at 4 to 6% until touchdown. After a touch and go, remember if you've configured the flaps to landing to push the flap lever all the way into the up position, If the flaps are left in the takeoff position, your only indication, aside from the flap position indicator, will be a conspicuously high power setting required to maintain 200 knots, at which point you've oversped the daylights out of them. Now what you'll see is a full-speed run-through of the entire SFL from the request for high key to touchdown without pauses or interruptions.
2 on the pattern.
Axel 1-1 request high key?
For 1 minute.
Axel 1-1, 1 minute.
For high key.
Axel 1-1, high key.
For low key.
Alright, 140 gear clear. Gear, no flaps, power to 6%. 4 to 6. Handle down, 3 green flaps up. Alright, there is a beam at 2800, hot damn. Axel 1-1 low, key gear down. Every time I say landing's assured, it could have been assured 5 seconds ago. I'm going to say we're good now.
Zero, number 1.
Climbing, good engine gear clear.
Good engine.
12108, number 1, clear for takeoff.
Papa 0, good to go.
Couldn't find the lever.
All 73 radar initial.
Gears up, flaps up, lights out 120.